What's up, YouTube? I'm going to show you how to do the XClamp fix. But real quick, before we do that, I'd just like to shout out a big fuck you to this guy right here. He is the YouTube user Xboxes Are Repairable. And he pisses me off. He basically spams all the XClamp videos, leaving all sorts of comments saying he's a professional and we're all assholes for doing the XClamp fix. I think he's full of shit, but I guess that's remained to be seen. So yeah, fuck you, stop spamming. Alright, moving on. Now, I actually posted a video showing an XClamp fix about 1.5 years ago, and it's gotten a good number of views, a lot of comments, a lot of people have said it's worked for them, and I'm glad to hear all that. But the reason why I'm making this new video is because I've been doing it a little bit differently for a while now, and so I thought I would just show you exactly what I've been doing. Now, this method, I believe, is just as good as the way I showed it before. It might even be better, especially if you decide to use the heat gun part of this fix. And I also find it easier to do, so I thought I would make this updated XClamp fix video to show you all exactly what I'm doing here. So before we begin, you need to open up your Xbox and remove the motherboard. You need to remove the X-clamps, the heat sinks, and clean the chips the best you can. You might not be able to get everything off the chips, but just clean most of it off and it'll be fine. And if you need further help as to how to do all that, just check out my first video. It shows it all very clearly. Here's what you'll need to do this fix with. You need 8 of these bolts. These are actually metric size machine screws. They're M5, they're 10 millimeters in length, and that's the length that you want. That's the perfect length for this fix. I prefer the hex cap ones because they're easier to work with. I'll actually explain that a little bit more later on in this video. And for the hex cap ones, you'll need the socket to screw them in with. That's actually a 5/16 size socket, but it works fine. So again, you need 8 bolts. I got these at Lowe's. I think they're about 80 cents a pack. Now you'll need some steel washers. These are 5mm flat washers. You'll need 8 of those, and that's a pack of 10. I got that at Lowe's. And you'll need nylon washers. These are 1/4 inch size ones because they don't carry the 5mm ones at the Lowe's, at least not at the one that I go to, so I just use the 1/4 inch ones. They're close enough. They're about 1 millimeter thick. You'll need 8 of those. So 8 bolts, 8 steel washers, and 8 nylon washers. And you're definitely going to need a thermal paste for the chips. That's the brand I recommend, but I have used other brands before and they work fine. Basically, any brand that's good for computer chips will be fine for this fix. And I use an old gift card to spread the paste over the chips with. Now, if you're going to do the heat gun part of this fix, then you'll need a heat gun, obviously. I got this at Lowe's. It's just a very basic, cheap model. It's about 25 bucks. And it's got 2 settings on it, low and high. Low is about 700 degrees Fahrenheit. High is about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's what you'll need to do this fix with. Okay, now we're going to be using the heat gun. We're going to do that part of this fix. Here's the front of the board. Here's a top view. And we're actually going to be heating the bottom of the board, but the areas that we're going to concentrate on are where the chips are. The RAM chips here, the GPU, the CPU, and in between. So when you're looking at the bottom of the board, that's going to be this area here. That's where you're going to heat with the heat gun. Now, there's a couple things to remember. Number one is to make sure the board is sitting as flat as possible. That can be a little tricky because of all the components on top of the board. I do this a lot, so I've rigged up this little thing, but I'm sure you can find some way to make it sit nice and level. So once you have the board sitting nice and level, the second thing you want to remember is to make sure that nobody bumps into it. Nobody can move the board. It's got to be absolutely still during the whole time. It takes about 5 minutes to heat it with a gun, but it's got to sit there and cool for about 45 minutes. And during that time, you don't want anyone to bump into the table or move the board. So that's the second thing to remember. Just keep it nice and still. And the third thing to remember is to hold the heat gun above the motherboard about 3 or 4 inches. You don't want it too close. So about 3 or 4 inches above the board is perfect. And also, it's very important to remember to keep the gun moving. I usually use circular motions, and you don't want to blast the same spot for any length of time, because that'll probably ruin the board. It'll be too much heat. So keep the gun moving around. As far as how long to use the gun for, what I do is I put it on low, and I do that for about 1.5 minutes, and then I put it on high for about 3 minutes, and then back down to low for the last minute. So I'm using it for about 5 minutes total. Okay, I've given the board about 45 minutes to cool down, and our next step is to add some thermal paste to the chips. So what you want to do is just put a drop of paste right in the center of each chip, no bigger than the size of a grain of rice, and then you want to use an old credit card or an old gift card to spread the paste out nice and even. What you're going for here is a nice thin, even coating on top of the chips. Now I've actually already done the CPU, so I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, you want it just on the top of a chip. If it's all dripping off the edges and everything, then you've used too much, and that'll be just as dangerous as not using any. So just a nice thin coating right on top of the chip, and the heat sinks and the heat itself will actually, spread out even more evenly. But that's what you're going for right there. So I'm going to do the GPU side right now so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's all you need to do. Try not to get any paste anywhere else on the board. If you do, just use a little bit of rubbing alcohol to clean it up. But it probably won't hurt anything, but just try to avoid it. Now we're going to put the heat sinks on. Go ahead and stand the motherboard up on the USB port so it'll make it easier. Now what we're going to do is put one bolt through each hole that the heat sinks go to. Do this from the bottom of the motherboard. Then on top of the motherboard, put one nylon washer and then one steel washer over each bolt. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and you'll see what I mean. So that's it, nothing to it. Just the bolts, nylon washer first, and then the steel washer on top. The reason why we want to use a nylon washer first is because it protects the motherboard against any kind of scuffing that the steel washers might do. Now again, I can't find 5mm nylon washers around here, so I use the 1/4 inch ones. And they work fine, but they're a little too wide to be next to each other like that. They're in the center, so I've made cuts. That allows them to sit nice and flush without overlapping each other. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and put that GPU heatsink on. Just start off finger tightening each bolt the best you can and keep them nice and even. Alright, so we got the GPU heatsink screwed down. It's nice and snug. It's finger tight for now. That's all you want to do at this point. And again, the 10mm length bolts are perfect. Anything longer just wouldn't fit. So now what I'm going to do is put the CPU heatsink on the board, doing the exact same thing that I just did. Start off with the bolts, put them through the holes, put one nylon washer down, followed by one steel washer. Make sure those center washers are not overlapping each other, and finger tighten that CPU heatsink down the best you can. Alright, well now that you've got everything finger tightened, go ahead and use your screwdriver to finish them. Just make sure you do not use too much force. That's probably the most common mistake people make when they're trying to do these fixes. They over tighten all the screws and they end up ruining it, so just be careful of that. Earlier in this video I said that I prefer to use the hex cap bolts, and the reason for that is because there's no second guessing as to how tight they need to be. The hex cap bolts, they tend to just go in and stop when they're done. They just come to a stop. You don't need to worry about if you're using too much force or if you need to make them any tighter. They go in so far and then they're done. So that's why I prefer them. They just have a better feel to them. Alright, I've got the Xbox hooked up to the TV, and let's go ahead and try this out. Let's hope it works, because I've got a few more to do. Oh, there we go. Let's see what dash we're on. I think it's probably the newer one. Yep. So we can't JTAG this one, but we've got a working 360, which is definitely cool. And what I'll do now is I'll probably do the 12-volt fan mod because it's the older motherboard. And I'll keep an eye on it for a few more hours until I put the rest of it back together, make sure everything's fine. But that's how I've been doing this fix for a while now. That's why I decided to make this video. It's a little update to my previous one. And I hope this helps you out. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to ask, leave comments, do all that happy stuff. And good luck. Until next time.